Hello, everybody in Facebook world, YouTube world, social media world. My name is Glenn Pollard, and I'm from Canada. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about my horror story from my hip replacement surgery. It was a living nightmare. I just want to put that out there. And it's not just about my pain, it's a warning for everybody out there that thinking that it's just a normal, common procedures. From the people I've been talking to, it just seems to be more than 2% infection rate, and it's just and of course I had to be a part of the 1 or 2% club like I usually am. But anyway, before the surgery I was living every day in agony. Getting out of bed hurt. Every Just hurt to stand up. All the pressure on my midsection, it was like bone on bone type pain, and sharp pain from the nerves when it would, I guess, connect between the joint or rub somewhere. Something was going on inside, and it wasn't good. I couldn't do the things I loved. I couldn't enjoy life, and my mental health, it deteriorated, and everything was slipping away. It was pure agony. So the morning of the operation, this was in January of last year. This January will be a year. The morning of the operation, I was nervous but hopeful. And lying on the hospital bed, I told myself, just get through this because everything is going to be better once I get through all the pain, and it's going to be worth it. And when I woke up, it was in and out just like that. I had freezing done through my spine so it would freeze me. It's called a spinal injection, where it would make all of my body from pain. And because they were worried about the sleep apnea I had and the CPAP and the high blood pressure, everything comes with being an overweight truck driver for 25 years and living that kind of lifestyle. And you know what? That's probably what did it on the hips too. Although the doctor said it was from a birth defect. Explained the cup in my hip was on an angle. It wasn't quite straight, and the ball wouldn't fit into the socket actually flush. It was always on an angle. So he said it was inevitable over the years that I would have problems with this. So anyway, to get back to my story, I woke up, everything was fine. And then things started to go wrong. At first, I thought the pain was normal. The swelling was intense, and I had surgery done on my left hip. The swelling was intense. The incision didn't look right. It just felt like a restriction on moving at the joint. It was just over and over. And every day that the wound specialist community health would come over, they would say, "Oh, your wound looks amazing." I guess the visual, they couldn't see the seroma pocket that was developing underneath. It just, days turned into weeks, and the pain didn't improve, and the numbness didn't improve. And I just thought it was scar tissue. Maybe I had a lot of fat tissue in that area. Maybe it was just numbness, maybe nerves being cut. Whatever it was, the hit, it just didn't feel stable. It wasn't even mine. And that really does a thing to your psyche. Sorry. Every step felt like fire was shooting through my leg. So instead of recovering, I was sinking into a nightmare. I needed help with everything, getting dressed, going to the bathroom, even just to stand up and try to stay straight. I was just wobbling. And my right hip also needs surgery. So this one is next. But back to the story, even just standing up, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like the way a new hip should feel. I didn't know how it would feel. So just let that sink in. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. So if you're thinking about getting hip replacement surgery, here's what I want you to know. Ask more questions. See what are common conditions and negative things that could happen with the surgery, and they'll just say infection. 1%, that's what they'll always say. And you know what? That's right. It's good information. It's definitely 1%, but it just seems like I talk to more. There's a lot of 1% out there that I talked to one guy and his uncle had the surgery and had an infection and took a year to get over. He knows another guy, his cousin, that had a hip surgery and just got infected and had a real hard time healing. So if you've had a similar story, put it down in comments, what you thought would be a normal hip replacement. So anyway, this is almost a year later. It's 10 months later. And I just hope that I should have my next hip replacement surgery I'd say about a month. I got my phone appointment with my orthopedic surgeon on September the 6th. So I'll know then what time the surgery is going to be and what other hoops we got to go through before that appointment is made. There's usually you got to talk to an anesthesiologist and stuff like that. But this is just the beginning. So after 4 months into it, my wife and I looked every day. There was people coming in and out, and I would go to doctors, and they say it looks fine. But underneath there was a seroma that formed, and it had about 500 to 1,000 milliliters of liquid in it. And I guess being there so long, sitting dormant, it got infected. And so I caught that around the 4 month mark. And then I went to hospital, Corner Brook Hospital here, to get it lanced and drained. But the lady at the hospital cut a blood vessel as she was draining it, and she drained my seroma pocket, which turned into an infectious fluid, which was green, stinky, and nasty. Well, she turned that into draining my seroma, into draining my whole blood. So my wife was looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and I'm saying, oh shit. And everybody's running around looking frantic. And it's just a nightmare. So anyway, I got airlifted to St. John's, where they redid the surgery. They aerated it out with water, all the tissue that was dead from the infection. So they had to flush it all out. And I'm telling you, one lucky thing I got away with was, instead of getting the femur replaced, I just had the ball and socket to get replaced. So 10 days later, I got out. I didn't know I had low blood. I lost a lot of blood during the surgery. During those actually 2 surgeries, it was actually 3 surgeries, because the replacement of the cup and ball was after I was sent to St. John's, after the abscess was drained. So it's just a nightmare. So if I could help any one of you out there, saving you a lot of headaches, when something don't feel right and everybody's telling you it's right, go with your gut. Seriously, go with your gut feeling, because it's never been wrong. It's never let me down. And I got more stories coming up. One's going to be about my childhood trauma, my alcohol addiction, and what I did to overcome that addiction. And hopefully I'm going to have a lot more stories to tell you guys that will help. If I can help a handful of people out there with their addictions, I'm up for it every day of the week, because it feels good to help someone, because I know how dark and what it's like to be in that situation. So anybody like the hip story, I've always worried about things happening and infections happening. Maybe I worried about too much, that I brought it on to myself. So just try to have a positive outlook, because whatever you're putting out there in your mind, in your thoughts, I'm starting to think they really do turn into fruition. So if I can just help one person out there quit this poison, alcohol and cigarettes, I quit that. I got one more addiction, cannabis. I'd like to kick that habit, and I'm going to take you guys all along the way through my journey. YouTube, watch out. We got to go viral. Please subscribe and like my video, because I suffered enough. Please subscribe, guys. I'll be back. So if I could help any one of you out there, saving you a lot of headaches, when something don't feel right and everybody's telling you it's right, go with your gut. Seriously, go with your gut feeling, because it's never been wrong. It's never let me down. And I got more stories coming up. One's going to be about my childhood trauma, my alcohol addiction, and what I did to overcome that addiction. And hopefully, I'm going to have a lot more stories to tell you guys that'll help. If I can help a handful of people out there with their addictions, I'm up for it every day of the week, because it feels good to help someone, because I know how dark and what it's like to be in that situation. So anybody like the hip story, I've always worried about things happening and infections happening. Maybe I worried about too much, that I brought it on to myself. So, just try to have a positive outlook, because whatever you're putting out there in your mind, in your thoughts, I'm starting to think they really do turn into fruition. So, if I can just help one person out there, quit this poison, alcohol, and cigarettes, I quit that. I got one more addiction, cannabis. I'd like to, kick that habit. And I'm going to take you guys all along the way through my journey. YouTube, watch out, because we got to go viral. Please subscribe and like my video, because I suffered enough. Please subscribe, guys. I'll be back.